Howdy once again everyone, and it's great to see the Korean Samyang Optics company picking up the pace today and getting more new camera lenses onto the market. Today in the test lab we have their new autofocus 16mm f2.8 PFE, an ultra-wide-angle lens that's currently just for Sony's full-frame mirrorless E-mount cameras, although it might possibly come to other systems in the future, who knows. It's intended to be a lightweight lens that you can carry around with you easily while still being decently sharp, and at approximately $475 or £348 here in the UK, it's not too pricey, but it costs enough to need to be pretty sharp in my opinion, and sharpness is more important on an ultra-wide-angle optic. It's also advertised as having an extremely close minimum focus distance, which is always fun on a wide-angle lens. I'd like to thank Samyang's UK distributor very much for loaning me this lens for testing, although as usual this is a totally independent review. We'll be checking out both its strengths and its weaknesses. 16mm, as I mentioned, on a full-frame camera is an ultra-wide angle, making this thing fantastic for architecture photography, indoor shooting, and landscape work when you're trying to capture a huge vista. You can get wider lenses than this nowadays for sure, but 16mm is still a pretty huge field of view, which can make your full-frame photography pretty fun, but be warned, it can be quite tricky to compose your images at 16mm. It's all about your background when you're shooting this wide. The lens itself, as you can see, is dead simple. It's made of plastic, and at 207 grams, it is indeed quite lightweight, but it actually feels like it's built solidly enough. It could probably take a knock or two here and there. Around the rear mount we get a narrow weather sealing gasket and a USB-C port for future firmware updates. Then we get a little auto manual focus switch, always helpful, and that's followed by the plastic manual focus ring, which turns nice and smoothly. The focus motor responds to it being turned quite well, although it's not fast enough to do any sudden crashing focus pulls. As you can see here, the lens technically isn't displaying much focus breathing, but we do see some distortion warping in the corners as you focus in and out. Here's the lens's autofocus in action. It works silently and accurately, and it's nice and quick too, whether you're shooting in autofocus single or continuous mode. Nice. The lens's filter thread size is 62mm, which is great for polarizing filters, but bear in mind you will definitely want to use the thinnest filter possible to avoid any extra vignetting. I use Marumi Fit and Slim polarizing filters myself, and the lens also comes with a nice little plastic hood. Overall, build quality here is absolutely fine. It's doing everything you could ask for from a lower budget lens. Alright, let's see about image quality then. We'll start by testing it on a full frame camera, the brutal 61MP Sony A7C-R. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. If you want full frame images zoomed into the 42MP ratio of my older reviews by the way, for comparison purposes, then you can find a link to a special unlisted video in the description below. Straight from f2.8, image quality in the middle is razor sharp with excellent contrast. That's great, but it's also quite normal for a modern ultra-wide-angle lens. More importantly, let's look into the corners. Alright, for an ultra-wide-angle lens at this price point and on such a demanding sensor, this is a very good performance. The lens is only a little softer in the corners, although we are seeing a lot of darkness there from vignetting and some noticeable colour fringing as well. Stopping down to f4 sees a nice little improvement in clarity and brightness, although that colour fringing is still there. f5.6 offers another, albeit tiny, improvement. At f11 we start seeing softness due to diffraction, which of course gets stronger at f16 and f22. Overall though, this is a good show, considering how difficult that 61MP sensor is for any camera lens, let alone a lower budget option, and anyone shooting on 42 or 33MP cameras will be really impressed. It's a shame about that colour fringing though, but I guess you can't have it all at this price point. Okay, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting, which, as you can see, is basically out of control. That picture at f2.8 speaks for itself, doesn't it? Stop down to f4, f5.6 or f8 for those corners to gradually brighten up, but still, you will always want to use corrections for this lens. By the way, I'm focused quite close to my test chart here. If I focus to infinity instead, you can see that distortion is still there, but not quite as terrible. And now, close-up image quality. This lens can focus down to a very impressive 12 centimeters from your subject for some really wild close-up pictures, which is always fun, although the front of the lens will be so close to your subject that it'll be hard to light it properly. Anyway, at f2.8, close-up image quality is just okay. Contrast is good, but the image is a bit softer with increased color fringing. At f4 there's a big improvement in sharpness though, and at f5.6 we see reduced color fringing as well. Let's see how well the lens works against bright light. Okay, it's a slightly below average performance here. We are seeing some flaring for sure, and the occasional little flash of reflection when bright lights are in a particular spot off the edge of the image frame. I've certainly seen worse than this before, but still use the lens's included hood whenever you can. While we're working in the dark, let's take a look for coma and sun stars. Alright, in the corners we are catching a little coma smearing alongside that blue colour fringing, so just an average performance here. Stop down to f4 or f5.6 to see that coma gone and the colour fringing reduced. Let's zoom out then and look for sun stars. They begin to properly emerge at about f8, but really it's at f11, f16 or f22 that they get really quite impressive, so that's a nice little bonus feature. Let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh, although of course you have to get pretty close to your subject for an out of focus background here. The lens shows two faces. Deeply out of focus backgrounds can look quite lovely and soft, but in the middle distance we do get some distracting busyness, and the same goes for especially complex backgrounds. Overall though, the new Samyang AF 16mm f2.8 PFE is a nice option all around. It doesn't have the brightest aperture I've ever seen at 16mm, but f2.8 is good enough for most users, and it's lightweight and pretty sharp as well, although it suffers from a tiny bit more colour fringing than I normally like to see. If you're looking for a more affordable full-frame 16mm lens that's not going to weigh you down, then this thing will do you fine, and so it comes recommended. Thanks for watching everyone. I love wandering around Welsh mountainsides and abandoned quarries, so having a lightweight ultra-wide-angle lens is just right for me. A couple of things. Firstly, be sure to check out the playlists on my main YouTube channel, if you haven't already, for finding reviews of camera lenses for your system that you might find really helpful. Secondly, if you watch these reviews often and you'd like to play a part in keeping these sponsorship-free videos coming, then do check out my Patreon page or channel memberships. Supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content that I like to put together for them, as well as a warm, fuzzy feeling deep inside for helping to keep things trucking on here in the test lab. Ciao for now, everyone.